Hi, my name is Nikki Shaheed from Birthing From Within International. I am a trainer for Birthing From Within International, and I've also been a childbirth mentor and a doula for 8 years. I am the author of Heart-Centered Pregnancy Journal, as well as the Heart-Centered Pregnancy Card Deck.
Could we go into the birth experience without the preparation?
Oh yeah, people do it all the time, right? But it's important, I think, that we infuse the preparation people are going to have with honesty, with courage, and with compassion, right? Because whether people do intentional planning or not, everybody takes an idea of what birth is into that experience with them, right? And then they will interact with birth through those ideas and through those beliefs. And so I think there's a lot of value in doing preparation because whether we acknowledge it or not, we've already been prepared by society, by our community, our family, and our culture in many ways. So it's just taking that preparation to the next level, really exploring what are my beliefs about birth, right? What is the baggage, and I don't mean that in a negative way, right? But what is the baggage? What am I bringing into this experience with me? What of that is working for me, and what of that might be working against me?
Great. And what are some examples of those beliefs that we could bring?
So some of the beliefs that we have about birth come about during pregnancy. You might read books or watch videos or take classes, and that can influence the way that you think about birth. But really, it stretches back so much further than that, right? Even from a young age, we overhear birth stories, or we see birth on TV, and we start to formulate an idea. Oh, birth is like this. Birth is like that, right? A good way of giving birth is like this, and a not so good way of giving birth is like that. And aside from our ideas about birth, there are also more overarching ideas that influence the way that we show up in the birth space. So if I'm carrying a belief that I shouldn't make waves or I shouldn't make other people uncomfortable, that's going to impact the way I show up at my birth. If I have a belief that doctor knows best, that's going to influence the way that I show up at my birth. If I believe that I should do everything myself and not depend on other people, that will impact the way I show up in birth.
This is very insightful. So it seems like pretty much anything, not even related to birth, can then come with us to that birth experience. Once a woman is following that map, I really like your analogy of having a map, and I really like this contrast between a recipe and a map, even though sometimes I think maybe I could get creative with a recipe, but that's already not following instructions in a way. So if I am opening up that map in front of me and I'm ready to follow a certain path and I want to learn, how do I decide what is best preparation for me? How does a woman decide what she should do to prepare if she wants to prepare? How she can help herself and her family make that decision?
I think that when we are choosing a class, or we're choosing books, or even people want to talk to, or maybe stories we want to read or hear, it's important to ask yourself, why am I seeking this out? Right? Am I seeking out this book or this birth story because it makes me feel comfortable? Right? Because it reinforces what I already know, what I already believe, or what I already want to happen. So when we look at birth as an initiation, then we are looking at it as a process in which we will almost certainly be surprised. Right? A process in which we will encounter the unknown. We will meet moments where we're not sure what to do next. Right? And what we don't want to do is wait until the birth to find ourselves in the unknown. So if you can start in your prenatal preparation exploring, even things that are outside of what you're planning for or hoping for, and thinking about how could I cope if my birth were to look different from what I desire? How could I stay connected to myself, my partner, the baby, and the birth process, even if I do find myself in the unknown, and even if birth is unfolding in a way that is surprising to me?
It sounds like there's a lot of information to prepare for birth out there, a lot of different kind of information. This may be a tricky question, but I think it is an important one. Even though there is such an abundance of information, how come the birth as a process hasn't become easier for us as people?
Because information is not enough. Information is really important. It is important to have an understanding of the birth process and to have an understanding of the medical environment before you go into birth. But this does nothing to speak to the initiation, right? So you've got the map, but you haven't got the mindset to get through that map. And so I think it's really great how much information and data is available to parents now. But that is only part of the process of preparation, and the piece where we help the mindset, we prepare them for initiation, we push people outside of their comfort zone and help them see, how do I keep going? How do I find my way through even when I don't know what to do? What do I already know about coping? What do I already know about staying connected with my partner through challenges, right? This is what helps balance out that preparation and make it more thorough.
And when it comes to the mindset, you describe a very interesting mindset that can really make us feel more comfortable in the birth process, or make us feel more prepared for that initiation, or maybe be prepared to a situation when we need to take a step back before we take a step forward, for example. And this kind of practice, because mindset is often, when we speak of meditation, for example, we think of that mind is also a muscle that we can practice. And what you're describing, it sounds like we need many, many years to get to it. So as if, today I'm going to start preparing a mindset for when I have a baby in a couple of years. Is that true? Or what can we do to really get that mindset in the right place when we have just several weeks, or when we have just a couple of months?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I'm going to spend the rest of my life exploring my own unconscious beliefs, right? So how do we do it in a short amount of time to get ready for birth? And part of what we're doing is really laying a foundation, right? Helping people have tools and experiences where they can explore their beliefs. They can explore what they're bringing into the birth, and then they can challenge that. So if you've had that generalized experience, then you can go out and you can seek out more experiences where you challenge yourself. So to give you a very specific example, one of the things I do in class is I have people make birth art. And sometimes parents hear birth art and they're like, we only have 12 hours together. Why would we spend part of that making art, right? And the answer is that for most people, they have not made art in many years. And so it's an experience of stepping into the unknown, right? When we make birth art in class, I have people turn their paper over when they're done, because it's not about the end product. It's about the process. It's about the journey to get there, right? I encourage people to keep going, even when they've run out of familiar imagery, right? Keep going, keep taking the next small step, even though they don't know exactly where that step is going to take them. So just within this fairly simple activity of making birth art for 45 minutes, we have incorporated so many lessons about the process, about the journey of birth, right? And perhaps through their birth art process, they will discover something about themselves or about their belief system. And then what I do is I give people little experiments to challenge that, right? So if someone has realized, gee, it's really hard for me to speak up for myself, then they can start doing tiny experiments around speaking up for themselves, right? So first doing it with someone who feels safe, maybe their partner or maybe a sibling, right? And then they build up that muscle, right? And just as you said, it's like a mental muscle in the brain. They start to build up that muscle and just take on a little bit more comfort around using their voice, right? So once they have experienced that and they've taken that practice out into the world, they can also on their own discover other beliefs and start to experiment with those, and coming to a place of more balance within their belief system and the way that that plays out through words and actions.
To me, it sounds a little bit like we are taking mental processes a bit outside to help us understand them better, to then practice and then alter or strengthen those mental processes. So not everything that we do happens in our head. It actually can be done through art or through little experiments, which is an action, right? Which is a kind of big action, could be totally not related to birth, but working at that something that can then strengthen that muscle that you can use in birth. Really
That's right. That's
cool.
right. And taking action is an embodied way of experiencing that new knowing, because we don't give birth in our brains, we give birth in our bodies, right? So the more that people can take those aha moments, that new awareness, those new insights, and then go live out the results of it by taking action, then the more ready their body is to respond to that in birth than if it were just a mental insight.
Is there anything else that you think would be important for parents to be, for new parents, maybe for grandparents or aunts or uncles to know? Could be.
I think that one of the greatest needs of parents who are preparing for birth or who have already given birth is compassion, right? Because they are venturing into the unknown, or perhaps returning to the unknown, from the unknown, and starting on a parenting adventure, which is even more unknown, that it's very important to have compassion, for people to understand they don't have to have all the answers going into it, right? You don't have to be perfect all the time. You cannot be perfect all the time. And so compassion for those parents and self-compassion within those parents is one of the best tools that we can bring into the childbearing year.
What does self-compassion look like or manifest itself?
I love that question. It can look so many different ways, right? Sometimes it can look like, I have an idea, I have something that's inspiring me, and I'm going to set aside time to pursue that because it matters. And sometimes that looks like I'm going to sit down on the couch and put my feet up instead of doing the dishes because I'm tired and my body needs rest. So it's really about being present with yourself, with your emotional needs, with your physical needs, and leaving enough space for you to respond to them and not reject them because your conditioning and your patterning says that you have to go, go, go all the time, or that you have to be perfect, right? So it's being present with yourself and responding to your needs.